Hi guys, welcome to another episode of my channel. If you're new here, I talk about my experience as an international student in the United States. Now in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to show proof of fund as an F1 student when you go for your interview. I intend to do a series of videos around F1 interview. So this is probably one of like numerous videos. So I would advise you to hang around the channel and check for videos that talks about F1 visa interview. So if you've not subscribed to the channel, do not forget to do so by clicking on the subscribe button below. Do not forget to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and most importantly, do not forget to share if you think your friends are going to find the video valuable. So my primary goal today is this. I want to talk about how you can show a proof of fund, proof of financial resources as an F1 student. The first thing you should know as far as going for F1 visa interview is concerned is that you need a form called I-20. Now, so this is a form that is issued to you by your school once you've been given an admission. This form would usually contain the cost of attendance, which is your tuition and estimated living expenses. More often than not, the amount on this I-20 is always in like 50K or depending on where your school is located. So for proof of fund, you're expected to show at the embassy during your interview in most cases. Okay, there are interviews that would not get to that level. There are cases where you would not even be asked. For instance, I was not asked for any proof of fund when I was doing my interview. Okay, so but in most cases, the visa officer would ask you to show proof of funds, right? So what I'm going to tell you in this video is how you can show them that you actually have money to come to the United States to study. Okay, so most of the time people go there with like proof of funds that are not solid. Most of the time people just go there without even going with a proof of fund. How are you supposed to cater for your expenses? Okay, so that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. There are like several means of establishing that you have the financial resources to cater for your education. The most important thing is to show them that you have access to this money, immediate access to the money. So what I'm going to be doing all through this video is I would mention a particular way of showing the proof of fund, then I'll go to another one and tell you, like I'll start from the best to the least favorable way of proving that you have money. Okay, so the first thing is getting funding from your school. That's probably the easiest way to convince the visa officer that you do have the money, like you're not going to be struggling when you get to the United States. So let's take, for instance, you are coming to Georgia State University and your I-20 shows that you're going to need $57,000 as a cost of attendance, and the school is stipulating in the I-20 that you're getting a scholarship that worth $57,000. So obviously you would probably not be asked for proof of fund when you go for your interview. Serious, in most cases. Like I said earlier on, I wasn't asked for any proof of funding, and I did not even get full scholarship. I did not get any form of like serious funding on my I-20. So my point is, if you can get any type of stipend from, not stipend, if you can get any type of funding from the school, be it full like tuition waiver or in-state tuition waiver, any form of funding is going to help establish your legitimacy as a student that has resources, that has the money to cater for the expenses in the United States. So that's, to me, to my own understanding, that's probably the best way to establish your financial resources. If you've not seen my video, or if you don't know how to go about getting graduate assistantship, you should check my video on how to get graduate assistantship in the United States and how to get full funding for your education in the United States. Now, the second best method, the best method is getting funding from the school. The second best method is having your parents' statement of account. Obviously, if you're like old, let's say if you're in like 40s or late 40s, it is expected that you're probably working and you should be able to cater for your own finances. But all things being equal, okay, your parents' statement of account is the second best thing that can happen to you as far as proving your financial resources is concerned. Okay, so because most of the time they understand our culture, they understand where we are coming from, they know that if your parents can afford it, they wouldn't mind paying as much for, they wouldn't mind paying that much for your education. Okay, because we are like Africans, our parents spend a whole lot of money sending us to school. Okay, so if you have let's say $50,000 on your I-20 as your cost of attendance, do make sure that you have like your parents' accounts, make sure it has probably like times 3 or times 4 of that amount before you go to the embassy. The reason being that if all your parent has, if all they have on their in their bank accounts is just that $50,000, how would you explain that they are taking out all of their money to send just you to school? And it gets more complicated when the visa officer asks you like how many siblings do you have, and you're saying like I have 5 siblings, and are you and you're trying to establish a case that your parents are draining their bank account to send you to the United States. So you see the story is not balanced in a way. Okay, so my point is, if you're using your parents as your sponsor, as your primary sponsor, probably both parents or your both parents or your father or your mother, make sure that they have enough money in their accounts, at least multiple of 3 of the amount that shows on your I-20. Okay, that's key. The third best method, okay, we're on number 3 now. The third best method to show proof of finance is by using a statement of account from a close relative. Now, one thing that I'd like to point out as far as this is concerned is that the farther you go away from your immediate family, the more difficult it is to actually prove that you have this money, that you have access to this money. Okay, so let's say you are using your mom's brother, like your uncle on the mother's side. That's like a bit far in the sense that you're probably going to have a different surname. Okay, you have to first establish that you guys are related. You have to also establish that he's willing to give you the money. Okay, so the best advice that I would give as far as using like relative is concerned is make sure that this family member is like really close to you. Okay, so it's best if it's from your father's side. I mean, at least you share the same surname. You don't have to go through the stress of establishing that you are related in the first instance. Okay, so that is key. And aside from that, if you're using somebody that is like much more far from you, let's say your grandparent, for example, or your uncle, like maybe sometimes it's advisable that you get a letter, like a support letter as well as your statement of account. So you're not just going there with like their statement of account, you're also going there with a support affidavit, something that shows that they are pledging to actually help you. Okay, so that's like the third way to prove that you can afford to come to the United States at the embassy. The last way that I would mention is this, okay? You can also use personal fund. I mentioned earlier on that if you're like older, there's an expectation that you have some sort of money to cater for your own expenses, okay? It will be very, very strange for you to tell the visa officer that you're coming for a PhD program. Well, usually PhD are sponsored, right? But let's say you're coming for a master's degree program and you're like 45 years old and your parents are sponsoring you. That sounds like off, kind of, okay? But in situations like that, if you don't have enough money, you can use your own personal fund in collaboration with the fund from your sponsor. So let's say your expenses like 50K, you can tell them that you have $30,000 of your own, and then your parents are helping out with $20,000, something like that. So you can also use your personal fund and the funding from your sponsor. So those are like the 4 main ways that you can establish that you have money to cater for your expenses as far as studying in the United States is concerned. As far as going to the embassy to do the interview for F1 visa is concerned. Now, with that out of the way, I'd like to give you like 3 more tips that has to do with proving, like showing proof of fund at the embassy for your F1 visa interview. The first one is that before your school would issue you an I-20, they would usually ask that you send them a proof of fund as well. That's what the law stipulates, okay? The law stipulates that the school must assess your ability to pay for your education before they issue you an I-20, okay? So now a lot of mistake that people do is, more often than not, they tell the school that my uncle or my parents is going to sponsor me, right? And then they send their parents' statement of account. And then when the school is filling out the I-20 form, they're gonna put it there that your parents is sponsoring you. Now they will ship out the I-20 to you that contains your parents' name as your primary sponsor and your cost of attendance. Now, if you go to the embassy and they ask you about sponsorship, like who's gonna sponsor you, you better not show like your uncle's statement of accounts, because at that point you're contradicting yourself. Okay, so the takeaway point is that make sure that the proof of fund that you're going to use in the embassy is the same proof of fund that you're submitting to your school before they issue your I-20 form. The second tip that I would like to tell you is that when they ask for proof of fund, okay, they are looking for liquid cash. I think a couple of years ago, people go with like bond certificates, something that shows that they have money somewhere, landed property, like certificate of things like that. But now they really want to see that you have the cash. So most of the time, I would suggest that you should not go with like a bond certificate or stock, things like that. Just go with statement of account that shows that you do have access to this money. Like if you need it tomorrow, you can easily access the money and not just wait for like years before you have access to the money. Okay, so that's the second tip. Make sure that you are showing liquid cash, okay, money that is easily accessible, that is not held up in some sort of like bond. The last thing that I would like to talk about is confidence. Okay, no matter who your sponsor is, if it's your parents, if it's your personal fund, if it's the school, no matter where the money is coming from, you gotta push forward your confidence. You have to speak when you are asked about your proof of funding. You have to speak as if you have to speak like someone that is certain of where the money is coming from. Okay, if they notice any form of hesitation, that's gonna be a problem for you. Okay, it's gonna sow a seed of doubt in their mind, like maybe you don't have the money, maybe you don't have access to the money like you've claimed. So, but if they ask you and you're able to tell them confidently that, oh, well, my uncle is paying for it, my father is paying for it, my brother is paying for it, and they might ask you, why is he paying for it? I mean, you're going to have a reason for that, okay? So these are things that I do strongly believe that can help you establish a solid financial proof when you go for your F1 visa interview. If you like the content of this video, do not forget to click on the like button, do not forget to share, and do not forget to share with your friends. Do not forget to drop a comment if you have a specific question, and also do not forget to check out other videos in this series. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.